welcome back to the Calm and Connected podcast. I'm your host, Janine Halloran, and today's podcast is all about recess and movement, which I'm super excited to talk about. So when I think about the style of movement that I talk about in coping skills for kids, I think about those times when kids have really big emotions. You know, sometimes their body gets really full of energy. And when they have that energy in their body, they need to figure out some safe and healthy ways to get that energy out. And so that's why I really do focus on the strategies in the style of movement to really help kids get physical activity, get some movement, get that energy out in safe and healthy ways. So I love to talk about movement, like movement by playing at recess, doing exercises and dancing, all sorts of different things that you can do, stretches, that kind of thing. What's really neat about movement is that there's been a lot of research that has been done around the power of movement and how it can have a positive effect on cognition, the ability to focus and stay on task, and on social skills, which is amazing when you think about it. So over on Coping Skills for Kids, you may have seen this. I have a page where I share about some of the research on the different styles of coping skills that I talk about. And under the movement section, there are two particular resources that I'm going to just take a little bit of a deeper dive into today that can really help us reflect on the power of movement and recess in particular. So one that I really love is the LiiNK project, and that's out of Texas Christian University. So it's LiiNK project. And if you've seen me present recently, I've talked about this. I may have even shown you a video. There's a clip of the Today Show where one of the main researchers comes on and talks about the research that she's doing, and you get a chance to see some of the kids that are there. I would recommend if you can go onto YouTube and just search up the Today Show and the LiiNK project or Texas Christian University, and you could see what these kids are saying. It's so cute because they really are loving it. So what they did, this experiment that they did was they took younger kids, so it was first and second graders, I believe, and instead of having 2 periods of recess, they had 4 periods of recess a day. Yes, you heard me, 4 15-minute blocks of time where they could go outside and play, just get out, move their bodies, run around, play on the jungle gym, all of that, right? And this was done in some elementary schools in Texas. And so what was really interesting to see is, first of all, if you talk to the kids, they love it. The parents that they interviewed obviously loved it. The teachers were actually like really pumped about it because they had noticed that the off-task behaviors decreased. So if you look at the website that I linked to, it'll show you more about the numbers, but I just wanted to highlight a few that I found really interesting. So first, the off-task behaviors of the students that were involved in the project decreased 25 to 35% the first year. That's incredible. And then in subsequent years, it still stayed lower, 12 to 15% lower off-task behaviors. That's incredible. That is really powerful stuff when you think about how much time you do spend trying to get kids back on task in a classroom. Something else that was really interesting to see is that their reading and their math scores went up. I believe reading went up by 7% and math went up by 10%. And I find that to be powerful, especially when talking with people who are making the policies around recess, to say, you know, this does actually, it's not just fun, it actually impacts academics positively. So we should think about potentially doing this. So that's something that I always like to use if you're talking with somebody who's actually making the policies. And then there's also just the bonus and benefit of socially, they saw kids smiling more, laughing more, saying nice things to each other, encouraging one another, and just being happy kids out playing. And that's incredible. Like that the researchers were able to see this change in the kids that were involved in this project because they got up and they got a chance to move every 15 minutes. I mean, just incredible results there. So I'll link to the study and to the project in the show notes. But it's really interesting because they go through and they talk about like the different benefits, the academic benefits, the social and emotional benefits, and they actually have a lot more information. They break it down about resources that can be helpful for schools, resources that can be helpful for parents. So I'd absolutely recommend just checking that out and seeing what they have to say. It's really interesting. And then a second resource that I wanted to highlight for you was a position paper called A Research-Based Case for Recess, which really highlights why kids need recess and goes through all sorts of the research that's been done. And what is neat about the paper is that it's broken down into the different benefits that recess can have. So it's broken down into academic and classroom management benefits, sort of like we saw with the LiiNK project, the physical benefits of kids having recess, and the social competency pieces of being able to have more interaction, build social skills for kids. And what's interesting at the end is that they offer several recess programs and even discuss middle school recess, which I also think is an interesting concept, which I do not see a lot of, and I wish more schools did. And I know recess will look different at a middle school and, dare I say, at a high school, but they're still kids and they still need to play and still have downtime. So I would advocate and offer that, maybe there's a way we can give older kids an opportunity to chill out, to relax, to hang, to play board games, to play card games together, to do some really interesting things together. I think it would be kind of fun and neat to offer that to middle school and high school. And I know that's a little bit of a challenge, but sometimes I think about it and I think it sounds great. So I will link to that and the show notes as well. And I just wanted to let you know about a new resource coming out from Coping Skills for Kids from me that is all about movement. So you may know that we have a movement deck that has 40 coping skills, but recently we've been making some activity books, and I'm so pleased to announce that the new movement activity book, Marvelous Movement, is launching today, the day that this podcast comes out. So this book is all about healthy ways to help kids move and cope with big feelings. And in the book, there are 3 different ways that kids can interact with the coping skills to practice them and try them. What's tricky about movement is that, you can't necessarily like take the book and move with you, but it offers some activities and ideas of things that you can do outside, inside, big body movements, small body movements. But you can also just interact with this strategy, with the skill, in a few different ways. So there's coloring pages. So it has some of the coping kids and the coping critters doing the coping skills. So even if you can't get out and do it, you can color it. There's some drawing and some tracing activities. And then there's some writing activities. So kids can write or have a trusted grown-up write for them about the coping skills, things they liked, tracking how many maybe jumping jacks they did, or making up a dance routine. Those are some of the ideas that are in there. So lots of fun stuff. And then there are a few features at the back that can be really helpful. So there's a way that you could track which skills you've already tried and which skills you liked or didn't like. So kids can actually really keep track of, did I really enjoy that? Do I want to add that to my favorite kind of coping skills? That would be kind of cool. So kids can keep track of that. There's also a space for kids to write down coping skills that work in different places. So I've always talked a lot about not every coping skill will work in every place. So I wanted to make sure in these books that there was a place for kids to say, I can use this coping skill at home. I can use this coping skill at school. I can use this when I'm out at a social event. I can use this when I'm at a restaurant, those kinds of ideas. And then there's also a place for their 5 faves, like their favorite, their go-to coping skills, the coping skills that they really, really love to use, want to use all the time. So I'm really excited that it's here. It was fun to create and work on. It was a labor of love, and it was really fun to create. So I'm excited that it's here. It's available on my store and on Amazon. And to celebrate the launch, both the movement deck and the Marvelous Movement activity book are on sale now. So if you want to just take a peek over at the store, you can get a look there, or if it is better for you, you can get it on Amazon. Both ways work. If you like this podcast, please feel free to share it with your friends or colleagues. And if you like it, you could also get a chance to take a moment to rate and review us if that is something that you'd like to do. That would be great. That helps us get found. And one last thing, I don't want you to forget about yourself. Please take a few minutes, have a little fun, and have an awesome day.